Good evening, dear listener. Tonight we return once again to the forgotten folds of history in search of moments that shaped the world in quiet ways. Whether you're cozy in bed or listening with closed eyes, I'm glad you're spending this peaceful time here. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your part of the world. Are you just waking up or about to drift off with the past whispering in your ear? If you're enjoying these calm passages through time, please do subscribe. There are many more nights like this ahead. The lost roads of history are more than just forgotten paths. They are symbols of the unyielding human spirit, of exploration, connection, and progress. Once the veins through which trade, culture, and ideas flowed, these roads now lie buried under the sands of time, swallowed by nature or forgotten by civilizations. Yet, even in their absence, these roads continue to shape our understanding of the past, the present, and the future. In their quiet disappearance, they remind us that every journey, no matter how long or short, lasting or fleeting, leaves a mark on the world. As we forge ahead on our own paths, the legacy of these lost roads guides us, urging us to reflect on the connections we build, the stories we share, and the impact we have on the world around us. Let's get started. The lost ancient roads tell a quiet, continuous story of humanity's first attempts to connect distant lives, ideas, and destinies through paths pressed into earth, stone, and memory. Roads that once carried traders, pilgrims, soldiers, messengers, and dreams, and that now lie buried beneath forests, deserts, rivers, and modern cities, their presence known only through fragments of stone, faint lines in satellite images, or echoes in forgotten texts. These roads were not merely routes, but lifelines, arteries through which civilization itself flowed, shaping empires long before borders were drawn on maps. In the earliest days, when humans learned that movement meant survival, paths formed naturally where feet passed again and again, following water sources, animal trails, and the gentle curves of the land. Over generations, these paths hardened into tracks, and tracks became roads as communities recognized their value, reinforcing them with stones, logs, and drainage channels. The lost ancient roads of the world were born not from grand design alone, but from repetition, necessity, and collective memory. One such road might begin at a riverbank where boats unloaded goods and stretch across plains to distant hills, connecting farmers to markets, villages to temples, and rulers to their realms. As centuries passed, these roads absorbed stories, every footstep adding to an invisible archive of human experience. Traders carried spices, metals, textiles, and salt, while also carrying languages, beliefs, and technologies. Pilgrims walked in silence or song, believing the road itself to be a test of faith. Soldiers marched with discipline and fear, carving authority into the land. And messengers ran with urgency, knowing a delay could change history. Yet for all their importance, these roads were fragile, dependent on maintenance, political stability, and environmental balance. When empires fell, the hands that repaired stones and cleared debris disappeared. When climates shifted, rivers flooded or deserts expanded, swallowing carefully laid paths. Forests reclaimed stones, roots cracking pavement inch by inch. Sand dunes rolled slowly but relentlessly over once busy highways, turning movement into stillness, time into silence. The loss of these roads was rarely sudden. It was gradual, unnoticed, a missed repair here, a bridge left broken there, until travelers chose new paths and the old ones faded from use. Memory lingered longer than stone. Place names preserved echoes of journeys long past.
Legends spoke of roads that once led to rich cities or sacred sites, but without footsteps, even memory weakens. Archaeology reveals that many ancient roads were marvels of engineering, designed with gradients to reduce erosion, layered foundations for durability, and drainage systems to survive heavy rains. They aligned with stars, mountains, or religious landmarks, reflecting a worldview where travel was both practical and symbolic. To walk a road was to move through space and meaning simultaneously. Some roads unified vast territories, allowing centralized rule and shared culture. Others were local, but no less vital, linking seasonal pastures, fishing grounds, or ritual spaces. The disappearance of a road often meant the isolation of communities, economic decline, or cultural fragmentation. Yet, paradoxically, the loss also preserved them, untouched by later construction, hidden beneath soil like time capsules. Modern discoveries of lost roads often begin with subtle clues: a straight line cutting through irregular terrain, a raised embankment where none should be, or stones arranged too deliberately to be natural. Aerial surveys and satellite imagery have revealed networks invisible at ground level, ghost roads etched faintly into landscapes, their patterns hinting at forgotten logic and long-distance planning. These revelations remind us that ancient peoples thought on scales we often underestimate, planning routes that anticipated generations of use. The roads also reveal power dynamics: who built them, who was allowed to travel them, and who was excluded. Toll points, way stations, and checkpoints regulated movement, controlling trade and information. Inns and rest houses formed nodes of interaction where strangers exchanged news and stories, blending cultures along the way. Danger was constant. Bandits, harsh weather, disease, and exhaustion claimed countless lives. Yet the road promised opportunity, wealth, salvation, or escape, making risk worthwhile. The emotional landscape of these roads was as complex as their physical form. Hope and fear walked side by side. The decline of ancient roads often coincided with shifts in trade routes, maritime travel replacing overland caravans, political centers moving, or new technologies changing how people moved. Once a road lost its relevance, maintenance ceased and decay accelerated. Stones were repurposed for buildings, bridges dismantled for local use. The road dissolved into its surroundings, becoming quarry rather than pathway. In some cases, later civilizations built directly atop ancient roads, inheriting their alignments without knowing their origins. Modern highways sometimes trace paths chosen thousands of years earlier, guided by the same geography and logic, unknowingly continuing ancient journeys. Yet many roads remain truly lost, leading nowhere visible, ending abruptly in forests or deserts, provoking questions without answers. Where did this road lead? Who walked it last? What final message was carried along its stones? The silence of these roads invites contemplation. They remind us that permanence is an illusion. Even the most solid structures yield to time. Yet they also testify to human resilience and imagination, the desire to connect, to reach beyond the horizon, to turn distance into possibility. Walking an ancient road, even in fragments, is to step into layered time, to feel the weight of countless journeys beneath one's feet, each stone worn smooth by lives long gone. The lost ancient roads are not merely remnants of infrastructure. They are narratives written into the earth, stories of ambition, cooperation, conflict, and faith. Their disappearance is not an end, but a transformation, from movement to memory, from utility to mystery. As long as humans continue to search for them, to trace their lines and imagine their footsteps, these roads are not truly lost. They exist in the quiet space between past and present, reminding us that every journey we take today rests upon paths laid by those who walked before us, and that one day our own roads too may fade, leaving only faint traces for future wanderers to rediscover and wonder about. In this endless cycle of building, forgetting, and remembering, the lost ancient roads stand as gentle teachers, urging patience, humility, and reverence for the deep time beneath our modern world.
And beyond what can be traced or measured, the lost ancient roads continue to exist as psychological and cultural pathways, shaping how later societies imagined distance, direction, and destiny. Because once a route is walked enough times, it imprints itself not only on land, but on thought. Ancient maps, though often symbolic rather than precise, reflected an understanding of roads as threads stitching the known world together, placing sacred centers at crossroads and imagining the edge of the world where roads dissolved into myth. Travelers spoke of roads that vanished into mist, deserts that rearranged paths overnight, forests that swallowed direction itself. Such stories were not merely exaggerations, but expressions of how fragile certainty felt when movement depended on memory rather than signs. A single missed turn could mean death or transformation, and thus roads became metaphors for choice, fate, and moral testing. To follow the road was to accept order, to leave it was to risk chaos or revelation. Many initiation rituals involved journeys along prescribed paths, reinforcing identity through movement, while exile was marked by the loss of familiar roads, turning the world into an unmarked expanse. When roads disappeared physically, their symbolic power often intensified, becoming legends of golden roads, hidden ways, or forbidden paths known only to the wise or the lost. Some cultures believed ancient roads were created by gods or ancestors, making their abandonment a sign of cosmic change. Others saw roads as living entities that aged and died like people, requiring respect and offerings. Neglecting a road could invite misfortune, a belief that echoed the practical reality that broken routes brought isolation and decline. As centuries layered over centuries, the materials of roads changed, but the logic remained. Stone replaced packed earth, bridges replaced fords, yet when collapse came, it followed the same pattern: neglect, fragmentation, forgetting. Modern archaeology sometimes reveals roads beneath multiple civilizations, each layer telling of rise and fall, a road built, repaired, repurposed, and finally buried, illustrating that continuity often survives through alignment, even when meaning changes. A path chosen for its gentle slope or access to water remains useful regardless of culture. Geography remembers what humans forget. This is why lost roads resurface again and again in human planning, rediscovered not by memory, but by necessity, the straightest line between two enduring needs. The emotional resonance of lost roads is strongest where absence is most visible. A bridge foundation in a dry riverbed, a paved incline leading to nothing. These remnants confront the observer with interrupted intention, a sentence left unfinished by history. They invite imagination to complete the journey, to populate the emptiness with caravans, footsteps, voices, the clatter of wheels, the quiet prayers of travelers at dawn. Silence becomes a canvas for reconstruction, and in that reconstruction, the road lives again, not as stone, but as story. In recent times, technology has given these roads a new kind of afterlife. Digital reconstructions, simulated journeys, lines on screens replacing lines on land, allowing modern minds to travel ancient distances in moments. Yet this convenience contrasts sharply with the lived reality of ancient travel, where every step mattered, where distance was felt in the body and arrival was uncertain. Understanding lost roads thus requires humility, an acceptance that speed has altered perception. What once took months now takes hours, making disappearance harder to imagine. Yet even modern infrastructure is vulnerable. Abandoned railways, unused highways, cities bypassed by new routes echo ancient patterns, reminding us that obsolescence is timeless. The study of lost ancient roads therefore becomes a mirror, reflecting not only past societies, but our own, asking which of our connections will endure and which will fade, which paths are maintained by collective care and which are left to decay. Roads reveal values. Investment in connection signals belief in shared futures. Abandonment signals fragmentation or shift. When ancient roads ended, new ones often emerged elsewhere, indicating adaptation rather than failure. Humanity rarely stops moving, it reroutes, and in doing so, leaves behind trails of intention. Some of the most haunting lost roads are those that led to sacred destinations, temples now in ruins, pilgrimage routes that once pulsed with devotion, now walked only by wind. These roads suggest that belief systems, too, have lifespans, rising, dominating landscapes, then receding, leaving architecture without function, faith without crowds. Yet even in abandonment, such roads retain an aura. Visitors report a sense of presence, as if footsteps linger in the air. This may be psychological, but it speaks to the power of accumulated intention. Thousands of journeys focused on a single goal imprint something intangible, making the road feel more than stone. Similarly, trade roads carried not only goods, but expectations, promises of wealth, survival, progress. When trade collapsed, these expectations collapsed too, altering social structures. Cities shrank, professions vanished, languages shifted, all traced back to the loss of connectivity. Thus, a road's disappearance could ripple through generations, altering genetic, cultural, and economic trajectories. In this sense, lost roads are silent agents of change, their absence shaping history as much as their presence once did. They remind us that infrastructure is destiny, not in a deterministic sense, but as a framework within which choices unfold. Walking a road channels movement, thought, and interaction. Removing it disperses possibilities into uncertainty. Yet uncertainty can also foster creativity, new routes, new alliances. The end of one road is the beginning of another, though rarely in the same place. The melancholy attached to lost ancient roads arises from this duality, loss intertwined with transformation, nostalgia balanced by resilience. To mourn a road is to acknowledge what it enabled, but also to recognize that its end made space for different futures. Standing on a fragment of an ancient road, one stands at a crossroads of time, feeling both continuity and rupture. The stone beneath connects to hands that placed it, while the air above carries modern breath. The road no longer leads outward, but inward, toward reflection on impermanence, purpose, and connection. In this way, lost ancient roads continue to guide, not through geography, but through thought, offering lessons without directions, paths without destinations, urging us to consider how we move through our own world, what routes we build, maintain, or abandon, and how future generations might interpret the traces we leave behind. Perhaps one day, long after modern maps have faded, someone will stand on a cracked stretch of asphalt leading nowhere and feel the same quiet wonder, imagining us as ancient, our roads as lost, and our journeys as stories waiting to be told. Thus the cycle continues, endlessly, silently, along roads seen and unseen.
And still, the road continues in the imagination long after the land has erased its surface, because a road is never only a physical trace, but a decision repeated over time, a collective agreement about where movement should flow. And when that agreement dissolves, what remains is not emptiness, but potential. The lost ancient roads whisper of choices made and unmade, of alternatives that once existed and then narrowed into silence. Historians often focus on cities, kings, and battles, yet roads reveal something quieter and deeper: the everyday persistence of connection, the countless unnamed travelers whose lives intersected briefly and then vanished. A merchant resting beside a milestone, a child learning distance by counting footsteps, an elder returning home along a familiar curve. These lives rarely enter records, but the road remembers them through wear, through the subtle smoothing of stone where feet passed most often. When those stones are uncovered centuries later, they speak without words, inviting reconstruction not of events, but of rhythms, the daily pulse of movement that sustained societies. In many regions, ancient roads followed cosmological principles, aligning with solstices, cardinal directions, or sacred mountains. Movement along them mirrored cosmic order, reinforcing a sense that human travel was part of a larger balance. Losing such roads meant more than logistical disruption. It meant a break in symbolic orientation. The world felt less ordered, less navigable in both physical and metaphysical terms. New paths had to be justified not only practically, but spiritually. Rituals emerged to sanctify fresh routes, showing that even in change, continuity was sought. The earth itself bears scars of this negotiation: layers of compacted soil, stones laid and lifted, trenches filled and forgotten, erosion revealing what was meant to last. In deserts, lost roads endure longest, preserved by dryness, their straight lines stretching toward horizons that no longer promise arrival. In forests, disappearance is faster, leaves and roots erasing human intent within decades, reminding us that nature is not hostile to roads, but indifferent, reclaiming space with patient efficiency. Mountains offer a different story: passes chosen with care, routes threading through danger. When abandoned, they become warnings etched into cliffs, paths too risky or irrelevant to maintain, yet often rediscovered in crisis, when modern routes fail and ancient logic proves sound. These moments of rediscovery challenge assumptions of progress, suggesting that loss does not equal inferiority. Sometimes abandonment reflects abundance, new technologies, new centers, not error. The emotional weight of lost roads often comes from projection, modern observers reading loss as tragedy, while ancient communities may have seen it as adaptation, a shifting of emphasis rather than collapse. Yet there are cases where road loss coincided with true catastrophe: climate change drying wells, invasions severing trade, pandemics reducing populations below maintenance thresholds. In such contexts, roads ended abruptly, bridges left mid-repair, milestones standing without purpose. These frozen moments capture vulnerability, the dependence of connectivity on fragile systems. They remind us that roads require trust, trust that others will maintain them, that travel will be reciprocated. When trust erodes, movement contracts, people turn inward, local, cautious, and roads fade accordingly. Studying these patterns offers insight into resilience. Societies that diversified routes survived disruption better than those reliant on singular corridors. Redundancy meant survival, a lesson echoed in modern networks, digital and physical alike. Thus, lost ancient roads are not only objects of curiosity, but sources of strategy. Their absence teaches as much as their presence once did. They encourage us to think in terms of networks rather than lines, relationships rather than destinations. The most enduring legacy of a lost road may be the habit it created, a way of thinking about distance, exchange, and belonging that persists even after stones vanish. Languages retain directional metaphors rooted in travel. Moral codes speak of straight paths and wandering. Journeys frame life narratives across cultures, all echoing an ancient intimacy with roads, even those long gone. When people dream, they often dream of walking, of being lost or finding a way, suggesting that movement remains central to identity, perhaps inherited from ancestors for whom roads meant survival, opportunity, or salvation. The final disappearance of an ancient road is therefore incomplete. It continues in minds, stories, and structures that echo its logic. A modern street following a curve that once traced a caravan path, a village positioned where a crossroads used to be. Even when unaware, we inhabit the afterimages of lost roads, our cities layered atop choices made long before us. The awareness of this continuity can be humbling, reminding us that innovation often rests on forgotten foundations, that what feels new may be a repetition with different materials. Standing at the edge of a truly lost road, one that leads into nothing recognizable, invites a rare stillness, an acceptance that not all journeys are meant to be completed. Some exist only to show that movement once mattered here, that life passed through and then moved on. In honoring these traces, not by rebuilding but by remembering, we acknowledge a fundamental truth, that connection is temporary, yet the impulse to connect is enduring. Roads come and go, but the desire to walk towards something beyond oneself remains. And as long as that desire exists, no road is ever entirely lost. It simply waits, transformed, for another generation to imagine it back into being.
And even when imagination seems exhausted, the idea of the road persists as a quiet undercurrent in human awareness, because to exist is to orient oneself, to know where one stands in relation to elsewhere, and ancient roads were the earliest teachers of this relational thinking. They taught distance, patience, anticipation, and return, concepts that shaped social bonds and personal identity. A person was not only from a place, but from the road that led there, defined by routes taken rather than points occupied. When such roads vanished, identities subtly shifted, communities turned inward, redefining themselves by boundaries instead of connections. Yet traces of outward-looking memory remained, songs referencing distant lands no longer reachable, customs shaped by goods no longer arriving, even diets altered by the loss of trade. These changes unfolded slowly, often unnoticed by those living through them, but visible in hindsight as the long shadow cast by a missing path. The lost ancient roads also remind us that movement once demanded trust in strangers, inns, wells, and markers maintained by people one might never meet again, a shared responsibility across distance. To abandon a road was to withdraw from that shared contract, to accept isolation, or to forge a new agreement elsewhere. This social dimension is etched into the remains. Waystations placed a day's walk apart, bridges built where cooperation was unavoidable. The road enforced collaboration simply by existing. Its loss dissolved that enforced collaboration, replacing it with fragmentation or localized self-sufficiency, neither inherently negative nor positive, but transformative. Modern fascination with lost roads often reveals a longing for perceived simplicity, a time when movement felt meaningful rather than routine. Yet ancient travel was arduous, uncertain, and often fatal. The romance arises not from ease, but from intensity. Each journey carried weight, consequences, and commitment. Understanding this tempers nostalgia with respect. The silence of a lost road is not peaceful because it was always peaceful, but because struggle has ended, the danger has passed, leaving only residue. In this silence, scholars and wanderers alike project meaning, using the road as a canvas for questions about progress, decline, and memory. Why do some paths endure while others vanish? Is endurance a sign of wisdom or of inertia? Are lost roads mistakes or experiments concluded? Such questions resist simple answers because roads exist within systems of economy, belief, power, and environment.
Their fate reflects interactions rather than single causes. One drought, one war, one technological shift can tip balance, turning maintenance into burden, relevance into redundancy. The humility offered by lost roads lies in recognizing how contingent success is, how dependent on alignment of factors beyond any one generation's control. This humility can inform contemporary planning, encouraging flexibility, redundancy, and respect for landscape rather than domination. Ancient roads often worked with terrain, not against it, following contours, avoiding extremes. When modern infrastructure ignores such logic, it too becomes vulnerable. Abandoned bridges and unused highways testify that forgetting ancient lessons leads to modern loss. Thus, the study of lost roads is not backward-looking alone, it is forward-facing, a dialogue across time about how humans choose to move, connect, and sustain relationships with land and each other. At the deepest level, a road is a promise that effort will lead somewhere, that connection is possible. When a road is lost, the promise is not broken, but expired, replaced by other promises, other directions. The emotional response we feel standing on a fragment of ancient road may stem from sensing an old promise still echoing, asking to be acknowledged, even if no longer fulfilled. Acknowledging it does not require restoration, only awareness, a recognition that countless lives invested hope into this line across the earth. That hope shaped outcomes, even if the path itself faded. In recognizing this, we honor not just the road, but the human capacity to imagine beyond immediate horizons, the same capacity that will one day render our own routes obsolete. Future generations may uncover our infrastructure with similar curiosity, interpreting our intentions through remnants, wondering why certain paths mattered and why others were abandoned. In that imagined future, our present becomes their ancient past, our busy highways their lost roads, the cycle repeating with quiet inevitability. Understanding this places us gently within time rather than above it, reminding us that permanence is not the measure of value, impact is. A road that exists briefly but changes lives profoundly is no less significant than one that endures for millennia. The lost ancient roads, therefore, ask us to rethink legacy, not as survival of structures, but as influence on movement, thought, and possibility. They suggest that what truly lasts is not stone, but direction, not pavement, but purpose. And as long as humans continue to seek, to journey, to connect, the spirit of these lost roads remains alive, guiding without guidance, leading without leading, present in every decision to move forward, even when the way is uncertain, even when the path must be made anew.
And so the narrative stretches onward without markers or milestones, mirroring the very roads it describes, continuous, worn smooth by repetition, fading yet persistent. Because the essence of a road is continuity itself, the refusal to stop at the edge of the known. Ancient roads taught societies how to think beyond immediacy, how to plan for seasons, generations, futures unseen. A road was an investment in tomorrow, built by those who might never walk its full length, maintained by those who trusted that others would do the same. When such trust weakened, the road weakened with it. Stones loosened, ruts deepened, bridges sagged, and eventually the decision to repair was postponed one last time, marking the invisible moment when a road became lost. Not because it vanished instantly, but because belief in its necessity quietly expired. This subtlety is important. Loss is often gradual, disguised as transition, and only later recognized as disappearance. Many ancient societies did not mourn lost roads. They adapted, redirecting energy to new routes, new modes, new priorities. Yet adaptation always carries residue. Habits linger, spatial memory persists, People continue to walk where roads once ran, creating ghost paths across fields, informal tracks that echo ancient alignments, proof that bodies remember even when maps forget. This embodied memory is one of the most enduring legacies of lost roads, movement encoded into muscle and routine, passed down unconsciously, shaping settlement patterns long after original purpose faded. Villages cluster where crossroads once existed, markets arise where routes intersected, even if the routes themselves are no longer visible. Thus, the road survives as structure without surface, logic without material. This persistence challenges linear ideas of loss, suggesting that disappearance is rarely total. Something always remains, redistributed, transformed. The concept of the road also influenced governance, taxation, law. The ability to move officials, enforce decisions, collect resources depended on reliable routes. When roads decayed, authority fragmented, local powers emerged, identities narrowed, illustrating how infrastructure underpins abstraction. Without roads, ideas travel slower, coherence weakens, difference intensifies. Lost roads therefore contributed to cultural diversification as much as isolation, creating pockets of uniqueness, dialects, customs, and practices that might not have survived under constant exchange. In this way, loss becomes preservation, isolation becomes archive. Modern scholars sometimes celebrate such outcomes, yet it is crucial to remember the cost. Reduced access to resources, vulnerability to famine, limited opportunity. Every benefit carries shadow. The silence of lost roads is thus ethically complex, neither wholly tragic nor romantic. It embodies trade-offs made consciously or unconsciously by societies responding to constraints, climate, power, technology. Examining these trade-offs deepens understanding of resilience, not as resistance to change, but as capacity to reconfigure. The ancient road network was never static. It expanded, contracted, shifted, reflecting living systems rather than fixed plans. Modern infrastructure often seeks permanence, resisting change, which paradoxically increases fragility. Ancient roads, by contrast, accepted impermanence, built to last, yet expected to adapt. Perhaps this expectation softened the blow of loss, making disappearance less shocking, more integrated into worldview. Cycles of use and abandonment mirrored agricultural rhythms, fallow periods, regeneration, nature and culture aligned. When modern observers encounter lost roads, the sense of mystery may arise from dissonance between our expectation of permanence and ancient acceptance of flux. Understanding this difference reframes the experience, turning mystery into dialogue across values. The road asks not where it went, but why we expected it to stay. In contemplating lost roads, one confronts the limits of control, the humility of working within time rather than against it. This humility is increasingly relevant in an era of rapid change, where infrastructures age faster than societies can adapt. Learning from ancient patterns of abandonment may offer guidance, planned obsolescence rather than denial, graceful decay rather than sudden collapse, acknowledging when a path no longer serves and allowing it to fade without panic. The lost ancient roads thus function as teachers, not through instruction, but through example, silent, patient, waiting to be noticed. They remind us that movement is a relationship between people, land, and time, not a conquest. When that relationship changes, the path must change too. Clinging to obsolete routes drains energy, while releasing them opens space for innovation. Yet release requires memory. To forget entirely is to repeat mistakes blindly. To remember without attachment is to learn. The balance is delicate. Standing on the remnants of a lost road, one can practice this balance, acknowledging what was without demanding its return,
appreciating the effort invested without insisting on permanence. This practice extends beyond roads to institutions, beliefs, technologies, even personal identities. All are paths we walk for a time, then leave behind. The ancient road becomes metaphor, not because we impose meaning, but because its life cycle mirrors our own. Beginnings shaped by necessity, middles defined by maintenance, endings determined by relevance. What matters is not duration, but coherence. Did the road serve its purpose? Did it connect, enable, sustain? If so, its loss is not failure, but completion, the quiet dignity of a task fulfilled. Seen from this perspective, the lost ancient roads are not sad relics, but completed sentences in humanity's long conversation with movement, each ending making room for a new beginning, each silence inviting a different sound. And as long as humans continue to move, to choose, to connect, this conversation will never truly end. It will simply find new surfaces, new materials, new alignments, while the old roads rest beneath, not forgotten, but integrated into the deep structure of the world, holding steady, teaching without speaking, present in absence, complete in their incompleteness.
And within that deep structure, the road ceases to be an object and becomes a process, an unfolding agreement between intention and terrain. Ancient builders understood this intuitively. They did not imagine roads as eternal monuments, but as living corridors that required attention, negotiation, and acceptance of change. This mindset shaped how loss was perceived, not as erasure, but as transition. A road was allowed to age, to weaken, to disappear when its role concluded, much like a field left fallow where a tool set aside. Modern anxieties around abandonment often stems from forgetting this relationship, from mistaking utility for identity. Ancient roads remind us that usefulness is contextual, bound to time, climate, economy, belief. When these conditions shift, clinging to old roots becomes an act of nostalgia rather than wisdom. Yet memory remained important. Stories of roads were preserved even when stones were gone. Elders described journeys to places no longer reachable, teaching younger generations about distance, risk, and possibility. These narratives kept spatial imagination alive, ensuring that disappearance did not shrink the mental world, only reshaped it. The loss of a road thus did not necessarily mean the loss of curiosity or ambition. People continued to imagine beyond their immediate surroundings, sometimes even more intensely, because restriction sharpens desire. In this sense, lost roads may have fueled exploration, motivating the search for alternatives, new passages, new technologies, river routes replacing land paths, sea lanes opening wider horizons. Each innovation both responding to and creating loss, a continuous cycle where movement evolves by shedding skins. Ancient roads also reveal the ethics of maintenance. Who was responsible for repair? The state? Local communities? Religious institutions? Travelers themselves? Responsibility distribution affected longevity. Roads maintained collectively endured longer than those reliant on centralized power alone. When empires fell, centrally maintained roads decayed rapidly, while locally sustained paths adapted, narrowing perhaps, but surviving. This distinction underscores a lesson about resilience rooted in participation, not scale. Lost roads often mark the limits of centralized control, places where authority stretched too far to sustain. Their disappearance exposes the boundaries of power, geography asserting itself over ambition. This tension between ambition and environment is etched into abandoned causeways crossing floodplains, mountain passes too costly to maintain, straight lines imposed on resistant landscapes. Their eventual loss reads as quiet correction rather than failure. Nature does not punish, it simply rebalances. Accepting this reframes abandonment as dialogue, land responding to human choices, sometimes cooperating, sometimes reclaiming. Ancient road builders learned through experience where persistence paid off and where retreat was wiser. Those lessons accumulated into cultural knowledge, influencing future decisions. When modern observers encounter lost roads without this context, mystery arises. But mystery dissolves into clarity when seen as outcome rather than enigma. The road ended because conditions changed, not because it was wrong. Understanding this fosters compassion toward past societies, freeing them from simplistic narratives of rise and fall, success and collapse, instead revealing continuous adaptation under constraint. This continuity is mirrored in the human body, shaped by paths walked daily, posture influenced by terrain, muscles trained by slopes. When roads changed, bodies changed too, subtly, generationally. Movement patterns shifted, affecting health, labor, even social interaction. Thus, the disappearance of a road could alter how people met, married, worked, prayed. An infrastructure change cascading into intimate life. These ripples often go unnoticed in historical accounts, yet they constitute lived history, the quiet background against which events unfolded. Recognizing this elevates lost roads from curiosities to central actors in human experience. They shaped possibility spaces within which choices were made. When those spaces shifted, history followed. Perhaps the most profound aspect of lost ancient roads is their capacity to slow modern observers, to interrupt speed with absence. Standing before a path that leads nowhere compels pause, a reconsideration of direction. This pause mirrors ancient travel rhythms where rest was necessary, reflection unavoidable. The road enforced contemplation simply through effort. Modern mobility minimizes such pauses, making loss harder to accept. Yet the fascination with lost roads suggests a hunger for slowness, for meaning embedded in movement rather than efficiency alone. Engaging with these remnants satisfies that hunger briefly, offering perspective without requiring regression. One does not need to rebuild ancient roads to learn from them. Attention is enough. To notice alignments, materials, placement, to imagine labor invested, cooperation required, intention embodied. This attention transforms ruins into teachers, absence into instruction. As attention deepens, the boundary between past and present softens. The lost road becomes a shared space where ancient intention meets modern reflection, a conversation across time conducted in silence. In this space, questions arise, not demanding answers, but inviting awareness. How do we choose our roots? What do we maintain? What do we allow to fade? How do our paths include or exclude others? These questions extend beyond infrastructure into ethics, relationships, careers, beliefs. The road as metaphor persists because it is grounded in experience. Everyone has walked. Everyone has chosen directions. Everyone has abandoned some paths. Recognizing oneself in the lost road dissolves distance between observer and subject. History becomes personal. The ancient road no longer belongs to them. It belongs to us as inheritance, not of stone, but of insight. In carrying this insight forward, we honor the countless unnamed hands that built, repaired, and finally released these paths, their labor not wasted, but transformed into understanding. As long as we continue to reflect on movement, connection, and change, their work endures, embedded in our thinking, guiding choices subtly, invisibly, like a road beneath the surface, unseen yet influential. And so the narrative continues, not towards a destination, but as movement itself, ongoing, adaptive, incomplete by design, echoing the truth that journeys matter more than endpoints, and that even when a road disappears, the act of walking, of choosing to move, remains the most enduring legacy of all.
And as this act of walking endures, the lost ancient roads dissolve fully into philosophy, becoming less about where people went and more about how they understood existence as motion rather than stasis. Ancient cultures rarely imagined life as fixed. Survival depended on seasonal movement, migration, trade, pilgrimage, and roads were the visible expression of this worldview. When a road disappeared, it signaled not the end of movement, but a recalibration of it, an acceptance that direction must be renegotiated. This acceptance contrasts sharply with modern impulses to preserve everything, to freeze structures against time. Yet ancient societies often trusted time as a collaborator, allowing it to erase what no longer aligned with present needs. This trust reduced anxiety about loss, because loss was familiar, cyclical, expected. Roads were born, matured, aged, and died like living beings. Some cultures even named roads, sang of them, mourned them, recognizing their life cycle as intertwined with human fate. When we encounter lost roads today, our sense of mystery may stem from this cultural gap. We see absence where they saw completion. We ask why, where they accepted when. Bridging this gap requires shifting perspective, seeing disappearance not as failure, but as transition, from material to memory, from function to meaning. Memory itself is a kind of road, connecting present thought to past experience. When physical roads vanish, memory often intensifies, stories condense, focusing on essential lessons, dangers avoided, alliances formed, horizons imagined. These condensed memories travel faster than stone ever could, shaping identity across generations. In this way, lost roads sometimes achieve greater reach in absence than they ever did in use, becoming symbols of origin, resilience, or warning. The symbolic power of a lost road can unify communities around shared narrative, even when physical connection is gone, paradoxically strengthening identity through loss. This dynamic appears repeatedly in human history, where decline in infrastructure coincides with flowering of myth, art, or spirituality. As material certainty fades, imagination compensates. The road shifts from ground to story, from logistics to metaphor. Modern fascination with lost roads may reflect a similar compensation, a response to overconnection, saturation, speed. We look backward to imagine a world where movement required intention, where roads mattered because they were scarce, not ubiquitous. This longing does not imply rejection of modernity, but a desire to rebalance, to recover awareness of movement's cost and meaning. The lost ancient roads provide a safe object for this reflection, distant enough to avoid direct critique, close enough to resonate. They allow contemplation without demand, standing silent, offering no instructions, only presence, the presence of effort, patience, cooperation, and acceptance of impermanence. These qualities feel increasingly rare, which may explain the emotional pull such remnants exert.
Beyond academic interest, they touch something elemental, a shared human inheritance of walking, choosing, arriving, and leaving. Even the concept of destination changes when roads are lost. Arrival becomes less important than passage. The journey no longer ends at a place, but at understanding. The road teaches by leading nowhere, forcing inward movement, reflection replacing progression. In this sense, a lost road is complete. It has fulfilled its final function, transforming travelers into observers, participants into witnesses. Its silence is intentional in retrospect, creating space for meaning rather than movement. This reframing dissolves sadness into respect. The stones did their work. The alignment served its time. Nothing more is required. Modern efforts to reconstruct ancient roads sometimes miss this point, restoring surface without restoring context, turning process into exhibit. While preservation has value, it should be accompanied by humility, awareness that what we see is fragment, that the true road existed in use, in bodies and relationships now gone. Honoring that requires restraint as much as reconstruction. Sometimes leaving a road lost preserves its integrity better than rebuilding it, allowing imagination to engage freely, unconfined by modern interpretation. The lost road thus challenges ownership. It belongs to no one, claimed by time, accessible to all through thought. In engaging with it, we practice a form of historical empathy, accepting difference without needing control. This practice has ethical implications beyond history, teaching respect for cultures, ideas, and paths that do not align with current norms, reminding us that relevance is temporal, that today's certainty may be tomorrow's relic. The humility learned from lost roads can soften modern rigidity, encouraging openness to change, flexibility in planning, compassion in judgment, recognizing that abandonment is sometimes wisdom, not neglect, that letting go can be an act of care. As societies face accelerating change, climate shifts, technological disruption, population movement, these lessons gain urgency. Ancient roads show what happens when adaptation succeeds quietly and when it fails catastrophically, offering patterns without prescriptions, analogies rather than rules. They invite listening rather than imitation. In listening, we attune to subtle signals, environmental constraints, social trust, maintenance capacity, values alignment, factors that determine whether a path endures or fades. Applying this attentiveness to modern decisions may help avoid future lost roads born of denial rather than adaptation. Yet even if loss occurs, the ancient example reassures us that disappearance is survivable, that humans reorient, reroute, imagine anew. The continuity lies not in pavement, but in the impulse to connect. This impulse has outlasted every road ever built. It will outlast ours, too. Understanding this frees us from anxiety about permanence, allowing focus on quality of connection rather than duration. A well-used road, even briefly, can shape lives profoundly. A long-lasting road can become oppressive if misaligned with need. Value is contextual, dynamic. The ancient lost roads embody this truth, silently, patiently, waiting not to be found, but to be understood. And as long as there are people willing to pause, to imagine footsteps where none remain, to feel connection in absence, these roads continue their journey, not across land, but through consciousness, guiding thought gently, without direction, without end.
And as this exploration deepens, the role of memory becomes even clearer. For lost roads, much like lost cities or forgotten peoples, continue to echo in the collective consciousness. Their disappearance not an end, but a transformation into a different kind of presence. A presence that demands not physical restoration, but mental and emotional engagement.
When we look at a lost road, we are looking at the potential for regeneration, not only of the physical path, but of the ideas and values that once sustained it. These roads were once the veins of societies, connecting communities, allowing goods, ideas, and people to flow between places and cultures. Their loss marks not just the collapse of infrastructure, but the collapse of interconnectedness. Yet even in their disappearance, they leave behind a lingering sense of continuity, because the need to connect does not vanish. It is carried forward, often in new forms, and sometimes in ways that are less visible, less linear, but no less vital. The modern world, with its speed, its immediacy, its constant connectivity, has lost something that ancient roads possessed: a sense of purpose grounded in patience, in understanding that the journey itself was as important as the destination. That connection was not simply about efficiency, but about relationship, mutual respect, and the shared experience of moving through space. Ancient roads, in their quiet, slow movement across the land, invited travelers into the world. They were spaces where reflection, dialogue, and exchange could occur naturally, in contrast to the hurried, often isolated experiences of modern travel, where movement is often a race against time, disconnected from the land itself. When we return to the idea of lost roads, we see that these ancient pathways do not represent something that has disappeared, but rather something that has transformed, something that continues to shape our understanding of the world, even when its physical remnants no longer exist. They live on in the stories, the songs, the myths, and the memories of those who traveled them, and in the lives of those who still walk the paths that these ancient roads helped to create. Even as the land changes and the world moves on, the imprint of these roads remains, and through them we learn that some journeys are never truly over. They simply take new forms, shifting from the material to the metaphorical, from the surface of the earth to the depths of the collective human experience. The lost ancient roads, then, are not so much lost as they are transformed, reborn in the lessons they impart, the connections they once enabled, and the ways they continue to influence the way we move, think, and live. They remind us that paths are not just about destinations, but about the relationships they facilitate, the connections they nurture, and the stories they help us tell about who we were, who we are, and who we will be. The journey does not end with the road, but with the understanding it leaves behind. And as long as we continue to walk, to think, and to connect, the spirit of those ancient roads will continue to guide us, silently yet ever present in the choices we make, the paths we take, and the ways we continue to move through the world, shaping it, and in turn, being shaped by it.
And in this ongoing process, the loss of a road invites us to consider the deeper, more nuanced ways in which infrastructure intersects with identity, culture, and memory. For a road is more than just a way to travel from one place to another. It is a vessel of collective aspiration, of desires and intentions made manifest through the effort and determination of those who built it, maintained it, and traveled upon it. Even after it disappears, it continues to live in the minds of those who recall it, who speak of it as though it still exists in some parallel, invisible world. The lost road becomes a symbol of what was once possible, a metaphor for the human quest for connection, progress, and understanding. And even in its absence, it remains a thread tying us to our past, reminding us that our existence is interwoven with those who came before us, who left their mark not in bricks and stones, but in the very spaces they occupied, traveled through, and ultimately left behind.
This is the paradox of the lost road. Its absence amplifies its significance, transforming it into something more than it ever was in physical form, turning it into a symbol of all that has been left behind, yet also of all that remains, a quiet presence that endures in the stories we tell, the paths we still walk, and the connections we continue to seek. And it is through these connections that the lost road remains alive. For roads are not only physical entities, they are the conduits through which the human experience flows, carrying with them the hopes, dreams, struggles, and triumphs of those who have walked them. And when a road is lost, it is not just the stones and dust that are left behind, but the memories of all who passed along it, leaving behind a silent testament to their lives, to their journeys, and to their place in the broader, ever-evolving tapestry of history. In this sense, the lost road teaches us an essential lesson about impermanence, that nothing, not even the most enduring paths, can last forever. And yet, even in their disappearance, they serve as reminders of our capacity for creation, connection, and resilience. Because in every road that disappears, a new one is imagined, a new direction taken, and a new story begins to unfold. Thus, the lost road exists not only in what has been left behind, but in what is yet to come, in the potential for new connections, new paths, and new ways of seeing the world. And in this sense, every lost road is a doorway, not just to the past, but to the future. When we reflect on the lost roads of ancient civilizations, we are reminded that the true value of a road is not measured by how long it remains, but how it shapes those who use it, how it fosters movement, growth, and exchange, and how it connects people, ideas, and cultures. And even when the road is no longer visible, its legacy endures, for it lives on in the lives it touched, the exchanges it enabled, and the changes it inspired. And as we walk the roads of today, we are walking in the footsteps of those who came before us, whose roads have long since vanished, but whose journeys continue to influence our own, through the paths they carved and the stories they left behind. And so the lost roads continue to speak to us, not through physical remnants, but through the lessons they impart, through the ways they remind us of our own impermanence, and through the ongoing human desire to connect, to journey, and to understand. And as we move forward, we carry the spirit of these lost roads with us, guiding us not just in our physical journeys, but in our quest for meaning, for connection, and for a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. And in this way, the lost roads, though no longer visible, remain a part of our shared journey, an enduring presence in the ongoing movement of time, space, and human experience.
The lost ancient roads, now buried under the sands of time, evoke a profound sense of connection to the past, carrying within them the echoes of those who once traveled their paths. These roads were more than mere lines on a map. They were veins through which human ambition, culture, and trade flowed, uniting distant lands, ideas, and peoples. Now, centuries later, these roads lie forgotten, concealed by nature's relentless advance, reclaimed by forests, deserts, and oceans. Yet even in their absence, they remain potent symbols of human endeavor, resilience, and the ceaseless movement of history. The lost road is not merely a path that has been abandoned, it is a reminder of how human societies once connected, created, and communicated, forging relationships through the simple act of travel. The footsteps of traders, soldiers, pilgrims, and travelers may no longer echo on these roads, but the imprint of their journey still lingers, embedded in the earth and in the collective memory of civilizations that rose and fell along these routes. The paths that once cradled empires, carried wealth, ideas, and innovations, were once a testament to the interconnectedness of the human experience. These roads bore witness to the flow of time, to the ebb and rise of power, to the struggles and triumphs of countless generations. When these roads faded, when they became lost to time, they took with them stories untold, experiences unrecounted, and histories that remained locked away, awaiting rediscovery. The absence of these roads, however, is not a complete erasure, but a transformation. For the road is not only a physical entity, it is a story, a narrative written in every step taken, in every stone placed, in every footfall that passed over it. These stories do not vanish when the road is lost, they simply shift form, moving from the realm of the tangible to that of memory, myth, and legend. The roads that once connected distant cities, linking the far reaches of the earth, have now transformed into the stuff of stories, passed down through generations, fading from the physical world, but persisting in the imagination. The cities and empires that these roads once served may no longer stand, but their legacies live on in the tales of travelers, in the written word, and in the longing for connection that defines the human experience. The lost roads remind us that the journey is as significant as the destination, that the paths we walk, though they may disappear with time, shape the world in ways we may not always see or understand. These ancient roads were not just routes for travel, they were spaces of exchange, places where cultures met, where ideas collided, and where the world was continually redefined. To walk these roads was to participate in the ongoing dialogue of humanity, to be part of something larger than oneself. The roads, in their simplicity, were a microcosm of human life, constantly moving, shifting, growing, and evolving. As civilizations rose, so did the roads that supported them, and as they fell, so did these roads, leaving behind only traces of their once proud existence. The memory of these roads, though faded, still remains etched in the landscape, in the ruins of cities that once stood at their termini, in the stories of those who walked them, and in the very earth beneath our feet. These roads were not just physical structures, but metaphors for the connections between people, the movement of ideas, the exchange of culture, and the relationships that define the human experience. As time has passed, we have built new roads, new routes, new pathways for connection, but the spirit of the lost roads remains with us, shaping the way we think about travel, about distance, about our place in the world. The lost road, therefore, is not just an artifact of the past, but a living reminder of the ever-changing nature of human existence. It serves as a marker of what has been, what was, and what could have been, while also offering a lesson in the impermanence of all things. The roads we walk today may one day be forgotten, reclaimed by the earth, but the legacy of those who walked before us and the roads they built will continue to echo through time. The lost roads challenge us to reflect on the paths we choose to take, the connections we make, and the impact we leave behind. In a world that often moves too quickly, the lost roads invite us to slow down, to consider the journey, and to remember that every road, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, has a story to tell. And as we walk these new roads, we do so with the knowledge that the paths of the past still shape our present, guiding us in ways we may not fully understand, but which are no less important for their quiet, enduring presence. In the end, the lost roads remind us that every journey is part of a much larger tapestry, one woven together by the footsteps of countless generations, each leaving its mark on the world. These roads may no longer be visible, but their impact continues to ripple through time, shaping the world in ways that are both profound and subtle. So, as we continue to walk forward, let us remember the roads that came before us and the lessons they impart, that connection, movement, and progress are at the heart of what it means to be human, and that no matter how many roads are lost, the journey will always continue.
And as the journey continues, we are reminded that the lost roads are not simply remnants of a past era, but the building blocks of our own existence. These forgotten paths were the veins through which life, commerce, and culture once flowed, sustaining societies, enabling connections, and facilitating exchange. To lose a road, to witness its transformation from a well-worn thoroughfare to an abandoned, overgrown relic, is to confront the ever-shifting nature of human civilization. Roads, once vibrant with movement and purpose, are eventually overtaken by time, nature, and the forces of change. Yet even in their loss, they continue to influence the way we think, live, and move in the world. The very fact that we remember them, that we feel a connection to the paths that were once traveled, reveals a deep-seated human desire to preserve the past, to understand where we came from, and to recognize the ways in which we are shaped by the journeys of those who preceded us. This is the paradox of the lost road. It is gone, yet it is ever present, embedded in our collective consciousness and reflected in the paths we create today. Even as we build new roads, new routes of connection, we are unknowingly guided by the wisdom of those who built and walked the roads of antiquity. These lost roads offer us more than just nostalgia for a time long past. They offer lessons in resilience, adaptation, and the fleeting nature of progress. They remind us that everything is subject to change, that no path, no matter how well-worn or carefully constructed, is immune to the forces of time and circumstance. And yet, in their disappearance, these roads also teach us about impermanence, urging us to embrace the journey rather than focusing solely on the destination. The roads that are lost, overgrown with vegetation or swallowed by the sands of time, continue to exist in a different form, not in the material world, but in the memories, stories, and histories that are passed down through generations. They live on in the land itself, in the remnants of stones, in the faint traces of their once proud alignment. They also live on in the metaphorical sense as symbols of our shared human desire to connect, to move, to explore, and to create paths that lead us beyond the confines of our immediate surroundings. And so, the lost roads become more than just geographical features of a distant past. They become metaphors for the larger human experience. They represent the moments of transition, the shifts in identity and culture, the ebb and flow of human civilization. In their absence, we are reminded that nothing lasts forever. Not the empires that once depended on these roads, not the goods that once traveled along them, not the people who once walked them. What endures, however, is the spirit of movement, of connection, and of change. The lost roads are silent witnesses to the passage of time, bearing witness to the lives and events that unfolded along their stretches, and even in their final forgotten state, they continue to inspire us to move forward, to seek new paths, and to create new connections. These roads, although lost to the physical world, have not disappeared entirely. They live on in the memories we tell, the ways we conceptualize movement, and the choices we make about how we connect with one another and with the land. The lost roads offer us a glimpse into the past, but they also offer us a vision for the future, a reminder that the paths we build today will one day be lost to time, and that it is not the roads themselves that matter, but the connections they facilitate, the journeys they enable, and the stories they create. As we navigate our modern world, it is easy to forget that we too are walking along roads that will one day be lost to history. The roads we travel now, with all their conveniences and modern technologies, are built on the foundation of roads that once linked far-flung civilizations. And just as these ancient roads gave rise to new forms of connection, trade, and cultural exchange, so too will the roads we build today give way to new paths and new journeys long after we have gone. The lost roads remind us that movement, change, and connection are fundamental to the human experience. They are the threads that weave together the tapestry of history, the markers that guide us toward new horizons, and the symbols of the ongoing journey that each generation undertakes. Even as we lose the roads of the past, we continue to create new ones, forging ahead into an uncertain future, guided by the lessons of those who came before us. The lost roads, in their quiet absence, continue to shape our lives, our choices, and our vision of the world. They serve as both a reflection of what has been and a reminder of what is yet to come, urging us to embrace the journey, to walk with purpose, and to recognize that the paths we take today will one day be the stories of tomorrow. In the end, the lost roads are not just paths through the land, they are paths through time, inviting us to reflect on our place in the vast, ever-changing landscape of human history, and to remember that no matter how many roads we lose, there will always be new ones to explore.
And as we continue to explore new roads, new connections, we begin to see that the lost roads, despite their physical disappearance, continue to leave an imprint on the very fabric of our existence. These roads are not merely markers of the past, but serve as invisible threads, subtly influencing the decisions we make, the directions we take, and the way we view our place in the world. Even as modern technology provides faster, more efficient ways of connecting, the essence of the lost roads reminds us that true progress is not only about speed or convenience, but also about the meaning we assign to our journeys, the relationships we cultivate along the way, and the stories we build as we travel. The roads of the past were not simply pathways between locations, they were a space for interaction, where cultures mixed, where people exchanged knowledge, where ideas and beliefs were tested and transformed. They were dynamic spaces, full of life, uncertainty, and potential. In contrast, today's networks, while crucial to the functioning of the modern world, often lack the same sense of organic connection, of shared space and mutual discovery. The lost roads force us to reconsider our approach to movement, to reflect on what we have gained and what we may have lost in the process of building faster, more predictable ways of connecting. For when roads disappear, they do not simply vanish, they leave behind gaps, voids where life once thrived, where experiences were shared, and where relationships were built. These gaps serve as a reminder that human progress is not linear, but cyclical, that we must constantly reevaluate the systems we create and ask ourselves whether they are truly serving our deeper needs or simply propelling us toward an uncertain future. In a world where we are constantly moving, where the rush of daily life can sometimes overwhelm our senses, the lost roads invite us to slow down, to pause, and to reflect. They urge us to consider what truly matters in our journeys, the destinations we aim for, the paths we walk along, and the connections we form with others. These ancient paths, now forgotten by many, continue to teach us valuable lessons about human nature, about the fragility of our constructions, and about the importance of remaining grounded in the present, even as we strive for the future. In embracing the wisdom of the lost roads, we learn not just about the past, but also about our capacity to navigate the complexities of the modern world. For as we chart new roads, we must remember that they too will one day be forgotten, and the stories they carry will fade into the annals of time. It is in this understanding that we find the true value of the lost roads, in their ability to make us reflect on the impermanence of all things, and in their quiet reminder that the journey is just as important as the destination, if not more so.
The lost roads challenge us to be mindful of the paths we choose, to remain open to the unexpected twists and turns that life presents, and to embrace the uncertainty that comes with every new journey. In doing so, we honor the legacy of those who came before us, whose footsteps still echo in the land, and whose journeys continue to shape the roads we walk today. The lost roads may no longer be visible to the naked eye, but their presence endures in the stories we tell, the memories we hold, and the way we continue to seek out new paths. And as we walk these paths, we carry with us the lessons of the lost roads, using them as a guide to navigate the present, to connect with others, and to move forward with purpose, understanding that every road, no matter how old or forgotten, has a story to tell. These stories, passed down through generations, connect us all, reminding us that we are never truly lost as long as we continue to move, to connect, and to seek out the new roads that await us. As we move into the future, the lost roads will continue to guide us, not through their physical presence, but through the enduring spirit they left behind, a spirit of exploration, connection, and the constant pursuit of new horizons. And in this, we find the true essence of the road, not as a destination, but as a journey that continues to shape our lives, our societies, and our understanding of the world around us.
As we continue to reflect on the legacy of lost roads, we begin to understand that the roads of the past were never just about their physical presence. They were and still are a conduit for understanding the fluid nature of human existence. The roads we walk today, whether paved or unpaved, often carry with them the echoes of ancient roots, linking us to the distant past in ways we often overlook. Roads are, in their deepest sense, the embodiment of human movement, the physical manifestation of our longing to connect, to explore, to communicate, and to change. As we navigate the roads of the present, we unknowingly follow paths that were first blazed by the footsteps of those who came before us. The disappearance of ancient roads forces us to confront our own mortality, reminding us that nothing in this world is permanent, not even the routes we so diligently carve out. Roads are fragile. They can be lost to time, to nature, or to the ebb and flow of human priorities. Yet in their disappearance, they leave behind something more enduring than stone. They leave behind stories, memories, and lessons that continue to shape the way we view movement, connection, and progress. These lost roads also highlight the interdependence of past and present. The paths that once connected distant places, that facilitated the exchange of goods, knowledge, and culture, are now the subjects of archaeological investigation and historical inquiry. In many ways, the study of lost roads invites us to question the very nature of progress and to reflect on the paths we are currently laying down. Are they designed with foresight, with a recognition that they too will one day be forgotten? Do we understand the profound impact that our present-day infrastructure will have on future generations? When we build roads today, are we doing so with an awareness of the impermanence that defines all things? Or do we act as though our creations will last forever? Perhaps the lesson of the lost road is this, that what we leave behind matters more than we realize, and that the true measure of a road is not in its longevity, but in its ability to connect people, ideas, and cultures. Whether these connections last 1,000 years or fade within a generation, they are what give roads meaning. The ancient roads that we mourn today were once vibrant arteries of life, and even though they have fallen silent, their legacy endures in the way we interact with the land and with one another. These roads shaped not only the physical landscape, but the very fabric of society, influencing trade, culture, communication, and even the spread of ideas and beliefs.
And as much as we look back in reverence for these lost paths, we must also look forward with the understanding that our own roads, our own systems of connection, will one day be subject to the same forces of time and change. To mourn a lost road is to acknowledge the passing of time itself, the inevitability of transformation, and the cyclical nature of history. It reminds us that the roads we walk today may one day be lost to future generations, but the connections they foster, the stories they carry, and the lessons they impart will continue to live on in the memories and histories of those who follow. The lost roads teach us that even as we move forward, we must remain grounded in the awareness that we are part of a larger, ongoing journey, one that spans both time and space, and that the paths we lay today will shape the future in ways we can only begin to understand. The true value of a road, therefore, is not just in its ability to connect places, but in its ability to connect people across generations, cultures, and ideas. And as we continue to move along the roads of our own time, we must remember that we are not just creating pathways for ourselves, but for those who will follow, and that the roads we leave behind will one day be their connection to us, to the past, and to the larger narrative of humanity's ongoing journey. In this way, the lost roads are not just relics of a bygone age, but living entities that continue to shape our understanding of movement, connection, and progress. They remind us that the journey itself is as important as the destination, and that no matter how many roads are lost, there will always be new ones to create, new paths to forge, and new connections to make. The lost roads, in their silent absence, continued to guide us, serving as both a reflection of the past and a beacon for the future. They teach us that every road, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, carries with it a story worth telling, a journey worth remembering, and a connection worth honoring. And as long as we continue to walk, to move, and to connect, the spirit of these lost roads will live on, guiding us on our own journeys and reminding us that the paths we create today are the roads that future generations will walk tomorrow. So, as we move forward, let us carry the lessons of the lost roads with us, not just in our minds, but in our hearts. For it is through our journeys that we continue to write the stories of tomorrow, and in doing so, we honor the roads of the past, the roads that have been lost, and the roads that are yet to come.
And as we continue forward on our own journeys, we must remember that the roads we build, the connections we foster, and the paths we take are not merely for ourselves, but for those who will follow us. The legacy of the lost roads is a reminder that our present actions are shaping the future in ways we cannot fully predict. In our daily lives, we often move through the world without thinking about the long-term impact of the paths we create, the infrastructures we build, and the relationships we nurture. But the lost roads remind us that these paths, whether physical, social, or metaphorical, leave behind a trace, an imprint that outlives us and continues to influence those who come after. Every step we take today is part of a larger, unfolding story, a journey that stretches across time and space, linking us to the past, the present, and the future. The lost roads are not just relics of what once was, they are symbols of what we are building today, and they invite us to consider the deeper meaning behind the paths we walk. Are we creating connections that will endure, that will transcend time and space, that will leave a lasting impact on the world around us? Or are we simply focused on reaching our own destination, moving quickly and without thought, leaving behind roads that will fade into obscurity and silence? As we look at the remnants of these lost roads, we are reminded of the importance of building paths that connect, that invite collaboration, that open up possibilities for growth and exchange. The roads of the past were not just about facilitating movement from one place to another. They were about fostering interaction, understanding, and cooperation.
They were spaces where people came together, shared ideas, exchanged goods, and built relationships that transcended borders. And in many ways, this spirit of connection is what we must strive for in the roads we build today. The lost roads also remind us of the fragility of human creations, the impermanence of even the most enduring structures. Despite all the effort, resources, and energy invested in building these roads, they were eventually overtaken by time, nature, and shifting human priorities. This is a humbling lesson. No matter how much we strive to build something that will last forever, everything is subject to change. Our roads, our buildings, our societies, and even our own lives are all temporary, constantly evolving, shifting, and transforming. But rather than being disheartened by this truth, we should take it as an invitation to embrace the transient nature of existence and to build with the knowledge that our work will be part of something much larger, much older, and much more enduring than any individual effort. The lost roads teach us that the true value of a path is not in its permanence, but in its ability to create connections and enable movement, both physically and metaphorically. It is not the road itself that matters, but the journeys it facilitates, the lives it touches, and the stories it helps to tell. And as we move forward in our own lives, we can take this lesson to heart, building roads not just for ourselves, but for others, creating paths that will endure beyond our own lifetimes, leaving behind a legacy of connection, cooperation, and understanding. The lost roads are not simply a reflection of what has been lost, but a call to action, a reminder that we too must create paths that invite others to walk with us, that encourage connection rather than division, that build bridges rather than walls. And as we walk these paths, we must remember that our journeys are not isolated. They are part of a larger, interconnected web of human experience, stretching across time and space, linking us to the past and to each other. In the end, the lost roads are not just symbols of the past, but guides for the future. They teach us that every step we take is part of a larger story, that every path we walk has meaning, and that the connections we make today will reverberate long after we are gone. They challenge us to think beyond the present moment, to consider the impact of our actions on the world around us, and to build roads that will not only carry us to our destinations, but will also carry future generations toward new horizons, new possibilities, and new connections. As we continue on our own journeys, let us remember the lessons of the lost roads. Let us honor the paths that have come before us, and let us commit to building roads that will endure, that will connect, that will create a legacy of movement, collaboration, and understanding that will transcend time, place, and circumstance. And in doing so, we will ensure that the spirit of the lost roads, of connection, movement, and progress continues to guide us, shaping our paths, our choices, and our journeys for generations to come.
And as we look toward the future, the lessons of the lost roads continue to illuminate the paths we create and the choices we make. The lost roads, in their silence and absence, carry with them the wisdom of generations that walked before us. And that wisdom is not just about the physical structures they left behind, but about the choices they made, the connections they forged, and the way they navigated the complexities of their time. The lost roads show us that the human spirit is one of resilience and adaptability, that no matter the obstacles, we will find ways to connect, to move, and to create new paths. They remind us that every road we build today has the potential to become part of the story of the future, and that the roads we abandon today may one day be rediscovered, transformed into something new, something meaningful. Just as the lost roads of the past once served as vital arteries of human connection, the roads we build now have the same potential to create lasting relationships, bridge divides, and open up new possibilities for future generations. But the question remains, will we be conscious of the impact of the roads we create? Well, we build them with intention, with foresight, and with an awareness of the fact that one day these roads too may be lost. The roads we walk today are not simply about moving from one place to another. They are about the connections we build along the way, the relationships we foster, the communities we strengthen, and the legacy we leave behind. It is not the material of the road that makes it significant, but the journey it facilitates, the opportunities it creates, and the lives it touches. As we build the roads of the future, we must be mindful of the lessons of the past, of the roads that once connected distant lands and peoples, and of the roads that now lie forgotten beneath the earth. We must ask ourselves what kind of roads we want to leave behind, and how we want future generations to remember the paths we took. Will our roads be ones of division, isolation, and inequality, or will they be roads of connection, of unity, and of progress? Will we create paths that invite collaboration, exchange, and shared growth, or will we build walls that separate us from one another, from the earth, and from the world around us? The lost roads remind us that our choices matter, that the roads we build today will shape the world tomorrow. And while we cannot know what the future holds, we can be intentional about the paths we create, ensuring that they are paths that will connect, that will bring people together, and that will open up opportunities for growth, understanding, and transformation. As we walk the roads of our own time, let us do so with a sense of purpose, with an understanding of the legacy we are building, and with the knowledge that the roads we take today will one day be remembered by those who follow in our footsteps. And in doing so, we honor the lost roads of the past, not by resurrecting them, but by carrying their lessons forward, by ensuring that the spirit of connection, movement, and progress continues to guide us, and by committing to build roads that will endure, that will transcend time, and that will continue to shape the future in ways we can only begin to imagine. The lost roads, in all their mystery and absence, offer us a profound gift, the gift of understanding that in the end, the journey is what truly matters, and that the roads we walk today are not just paths that lead us to our destinations, but paths that connect us to one another, to our past, and to the endless possibilities of the future. And as we walk these paths, we do so with the knowledge that just like the lost roads, the impact of our journey will continue to ripple through time, shaping the world long after we have passed. The lost roads, in their quiet way, continue to guide us, urging us to walk with purpose, to build with intention, and to remember that the connections we create today will be the roads of tomorrow.
As we continue forward on our journey, we must reflect on the role of lost roads not just as remnants of the past, but as symbols of the underlying human desire for connection, movement, and progress. These roads were not simply routes for transportation, they were lifelines. They were arteries of culture, exchange, and understanding. Even in their absence, they continue to pulse through time, an ever-present reminder that no path, no matter how fleeting or forgotten, is without significance. The roads of the past connect us not just to the land, but to the people who once traveled them, to their dreams, struggles, and aspirations. Each stone laid, each turn carved, each footstep that once traversed these ancient ways carries with it the history of human endeavor, of lives lived and stories shared. When a road is lost, it's not just the physical structure that vanishes, it is the moments, the lives, and the legacies that were built along it that disappear as well. The land reclaims it. Nature slowly erases the signs of human touch, and what remains is the memory of a time when that path was part of a larger movement, a movement toward connection, exploration, and discovery. But even when a road is lost, its legacy lingers. The lost roads continue to shape us, not as physical pathways, but as part of the collective consciousness, as metaphors for the journeys we are still making today. The memories of these roads become ingrained in the cultures and traditions of those who once depended on them, They are revived in the stories told by the old, in the songs sung by the young, and in the myths passed down through generations. The lost roads challenge us to think about what it means to be part of something larger than ourselves, to move with purpose, and to understand the connections we build with others. They encourage us to reflect on the very nature of progress and remind us that while the physical infrastructure of the world may be fragile, the bonds we form through movement, connection, and exchange are resilient and enduring. In our own time, we continue to build roads, both literal and figurative, that connect us to one another. But the lost roads urge us to consider the long-term impact of the paths we create. Are we building roads that only serve our immediate needs, or are we considering the ways in which the roads we lay today will impact future generations? Are we constructing pathways that foster connection and understanding, or are we creating walls that divide us, that isolate us from one another and from the land? The lessons of the lost roads speak to this question. They remind us that the value of a road is not in its ability to serve a single generation, but in its capacity to build bridges between people, to facilitate the exchange of ideas, and to open up opportunities for shared growth and understanding. As we navigate the complex and ever-changing landscape of the modern world, the lost roads challenge us to pause, to reflect, and to consider what kind of legacy we want to leave behind. The roads we build today will one day be remembered or forgotten by those who come after us. Will they see our roads as pathways to progress and unity, or as symbols of division and disconnection? The lost roads remind us that every journey, no matter how small or grand, contributes to the larger story of humanity, and the connections we build along the way are what matter most. We are not just walking paths, we are leaving traces, impressions, and stories that will shape the world for generations to come. In this way, the lost roads continue to speak to us, urging us to consider not just the destinations we seek, but the journeys we take and the paths we create along the way. They remind us that every step is part of a larger, ongoing journey, one that connects us to the past, to the present, and to the future. The roads we travel, the paths we build, and the connections we foster are the stories we leave behind. And as we move forward, we carry with us the lessons of the lost roads, remembering that the true value of a road is not in how long it lasts, but in how it shapes the journeys of those who walk it. Just as the lost roads were once the bloodline of societies, so too are the roads we build today. They are the means by which we connect with one another, exchange ideas, and build the future. And even as we lose paths and highways to time and change, we must remember that their legacy lives on in the connections they once fostered. The spirit of the lost roads is not gone, but remains embedded in the very fabric of our human experience, urging us to continue to connect, to move, and to build new paths for those who will follow. The lost roads, in their quiet and forgotten state, remain a part of us, guiding us forward, urging us to remember that every journey we undertake, no matter how long or short, contributes to the larger story of the world, a story that continues to unfold with each new step we take.
The lost roads of history, which once connected peoples, cities, and civilizations, remain etched in time as silent witnesses to the ebbs and flows of human progress. These roads, though now invisible or forgotten, carry with them the weight of countless lives, journeys, and stories. Their once proud surfaces, weathered by generations of travelers, have long since faded into obscurity, but their essence remains. Even as time has reclaimed these pathways, the echoes of the footsteps that once traversed them continue to resonate in the landscape, in the histories, and in the collective memory of the human race. To walk these roads was not merely to travel from one place to another, but to engage in a shared experience of movement, connection, and exchange. They were the arteries of commerce, culture, and communication, the conduits through which ideas, goods, and people flowed, linking distant lands and uniting diverse cultures.
But as civilizations rise and fall, as empires expand and contract, these roads often fall into disrepair, forgotten by those who once depended on them. The reasons for their decline are many: shifting trade routes, changing political landscapes, or the forces of nature gradually erasing the marks of human endeavor. As these roads vanish from the physical world, they leave behind not just the traces of their existence, but the lessons they imparted. The roads were more than just routes of transit. They were symbols of human ambition, the desire to connect and expand, to overcome the limits of distance and time. Yet, even in their absence, these roads continue to shape our understanding of history and the human experience. The lost roads challenge us to think about the impermanence of all things. They remind us that nothing, not even the most enduring paths, can escape the ravages of time. But their disappearance is not an end, it is a transformation. The roads may no longer be visible, but they continue to exist in the stories we tell, the memories we hold, and the ways in which we still move through the world. The lost roads are not just markers of what has been lost, but of what remains. They are the foundation of the journeys we continue to take, the paths we continue to forge, and the connections we continue to build. As we move through the world, we are walking in the footsteps of those who walked before us, following the same paths, even if we don't always realize it. The lost roads show us that history is not a linear progression, but a web of connections and interconnections, each moment in time building upon the one before it. These roads, though they may no longer exist in their original form, are still part of the larger narrative of human progress. The lost roads are a reminder that movement is central to the human experience. We are constantly moving, both physically and metaphorically, seeking connection, understanding, and meaning. The roads that were once built by hand, stone by stone, are now digital highways, connecting us across vast distances with the click of a button. But in our pursuit of speed, convenience, and efficiency, we risk losing the deeper connections that the ancient roads once fostered. Connections not just between places, but between peoples, between cultures, and between generations. The lost roads were a testament to the resilience of human will, to the desire to overcome obstacles and to reach beyond the immediate horizon. They were the products of a time when travel was slow, uncertain, and fraught with danger, yet people walked these roads, not just because they had to, but because they were driven by something greater, a thirst for discovery, a hunger for knowledge, and a desire for connection. In their absence, these roads challenge us to consider the paths we take today and the roads we will leave behind for future generations. What will they remember of our journeys? Will the roads we build today be the highways of tomorrow, or will they be forgotten, swallowed by time and change? The lost roads ask us to consider the legacy we are creating, not just in the physical world, but in the connections we foster, the communities we build, and the impact we have on those who come after us. They remind us that the roads we travel today will one day be gone, but the connections we make, the stories we tell, and the paths we leave behind will endure. The lost roads also force us to reckon with the passing of time and the impermanence of all things. The roads that once stretched across vast empires, connecting cities and civilizations, are now faded memories, their surfaces eroded by the elements, their purpose long forgotten. And yet, even in their loss, they continue to shape our understanding of the past and the ways in which we move through the present. The lost roads tell us that nothing is permanent, that all things are subject to the passage of time, but they also tell us that the human spirit is resilient, that even in the face of decay and destruction, we continue to build, to move, and to connect. The lost roads serve as a powerful metaphor for the human experience, a journey that is both fleeting and enduring, constantly evolving, constantly shifting, but always moving forward. The roads may be lost, but the journey is never over. The paths we walk today will one day be the roads of the past, the stories of tomorrow, and the connections we create today will live on in the memories of those who follow us.
And in this way, the lost roads are not just relics of a bygone era, but beacons of hope, reminding us that even when a path is lost, it can always be rediscovered, reimagined, and transformed into something new. As we walk the roads of our own time, let us remember the lost roads of the past, not as symbols of loss, but as reminders of the connections we have yet to make, the paths we have yet to travel, and the stories we have yet to tell. Let us build roads that will endure, that will foster connection, that will leave a legacy of understanding, cooperation, and progress for future generations. For in the end, it is not the roads themselves that matter, but the journeys they facilitate, the connections they enable, and the stories they help to create. And as we continue to build these roads, we continue the eternal journey of humanity, always seeking, always moving, always connecting.
The lost roads of the past, etched into the very landscape of human history, are much more than forgotten paths. They are the silent witnesses to the human spirit's desire for connection, movement, and progress. These roads, once vital arteries that linked distant civilizations and cultures, now lie buried beneath time, nature, and the passage of centuries. Yet even as they fade from the physical world, they continue to shape our collective memory, inspiring reflection on the impermanence of human endeavors and the enduring nature of connection. When we speak of lost roads, we are not just referring to physical infrastructure, but to the deep, intrinsic human impulse to seek out new horizons, to build, to explore, and to overcome the barriers of space and time. These roads once carried travelers, merchants, armies, and pilgrims, each of whom left their mark on the landscape, and each of whom, in their own way, contributed to the development of the societies they traversed. But as these roads slowly fell into disrepair, as empires rose and fell, and as new routes were carved out by changing technologies, the old roads became forgotten relics, hidden beneath the earth or swallowed by nature. However, their legacy, though unseen, continues to resonate through the stories we tell, the myths we create, and the way we move through the world today. These roads, even in their absence, remind us that no path, no matter how carefully constructed, is immune to the passage of time. The lost roads offer a sobering lesson in the fragility of human creations. They remind us that all things are temporary, and that the roads we build today, whether physical, social, or metaphorical, are subject to the same forces of erosion, change, and decay that affected the roads of the past. Yet in their impermanence, these lost roads also carry with them a message of resilience, for even when roads fade from the physical landscape, their purpose endures. The connections they foster, the cultures they unite, and the stories they enable continue to live on in the collective memory of humanity. The lost roads remind us that the value of a path is not measured in its longevity, but in the connections it enables and the experiences it facilitates. When a road is lost, it does not simply vanish, it transforms into something else. It becomes a metaphor for the journeys we take, both physically and metaphorically, a symbol of the constant movement and change that defines the human experience. In this way, the lost roads become not just relics of the past, but part of an ongoing narrative that connects us to the past, the present, and the future. The roads we walk today are not separate from the lost roads of history. They are an extension of them, built on the foundations laid by those who came before us. These roads, though new and modern, carry with them the same aspirations, the same desire to connect, to communicate, and to move forward. The lost roads show us that our journeys are part of a much larger, much older story, one that stretches back through time and continues to shape the world we live in today. Yet, as we move forward, we must also recognize the ways in which the lost roads continue to shape us, even in their absence. The roads of the past, though no longer visible, continue to influence the choices we make, the paths we take, and the connections we build.
They are a reminder that the journey is not just about reaching a destination, but about the experiences we have along the way, the people we meet, and the stories we create. The lost roads also invite us to reflect on the nature of progress itself. As we build new roads, new infrastructures, new systems of connection, we must ask ourselves, what are we building these roads for? Are we creating paths that foster connection, collaboration, and understanding? Or are we building roads that divide us, that isolate us from one another, and that limit our ability to communicate and grow? The lost roads of the past were often pathways of exchange, where cultures and ideas met, where trade flourished, and where relationships were forged. The roads we build today, too, should be spaces for connection, not just for physical movement, but for the exchange of ideas, cultures, and experiences. The lost roads challenge us to think beyond the immediate, to consider the long-term impact of our actions and decisions, and to ask ourselves what kind of legacy we want to leave behind. Will our roads be the highways of progress and unity, or will they be the walls of division and isolation? Will they foster collaboration, creativity, and shared growth, or will they perpetuate conflict, inequality, and disconnection? The lost roads compel us to look at the world with fresh eyes, to reconsider the paths we take and the connections we make. They urge us to slow down, to be mindful of the impact of our movements, and to recognize that every journey we undertake is part of a much larger, much older story, one that stretches back through time and continues to shape the world we live in today. As we move forward, we must also recognize the ways in which the lost roads continue to shape us, even in their absence. The roads of the past, though no longer visible, continue to influence the choices we make, the paths we take, and the connections we build. They are a reminder that the journey is not just about reaching a destination, but about the experiences we have along the way, the people we meet, and the stories we create. The lost roads also invite us to reflect on the nature of progress itself. As we build new roads, new infrastructures, new systems of connection, we must ask ourselves, what are we building these roads for? Are we creating paths that foster connection, collaboration, and understanding? Or are we building roads that divide us, that isolate us from one another, and that limit our ability to communicate and grow? The lost roads of the past were often pathways of exchange, where cultures and ideas met, where trade flourished, and where relationships were forged. The roads we build today, too, should be spaces for connection, not just for physical movement, but for the exchange of ideas, cultures, and experiences. The lost roads challenge us to think beyond the immediate, to consider the long-term impact of our actions and decisions, and to ask ourselves what kind of legacy we want to leave behind. Will our roads be the highways of progress and unity, or will they be the walls of division and isolation? Will they foster collaboration, creativity, and shared growth, or will they perpetuate conflict, inequality, and disconnection? The lost roads compel us to look at the world with fresh eyes, to reconsider the paths we take and the connections we make. They urge us to slow down, to be mindful of the impact of our movements, and to recognize that every journey we undertake is part of a much larger, much older story, one that stretches back through time and continues to shape the world we live in today. As we move forward, we must also recognize the ways in which the lost roads continue to shape us, even in their absence. The roads of the past, though no longer visible, continue to influence the choices we make, the paths we take, and the connections we build. They are a reminder that the journey is not just about reaching a destination, but about the experiences we have along the way, the people we meet, and the stories we create. The lost roads also invite us to reflect on the nature of progress itself. As we build new roads, new infrastructures, new systems of connection, we must ask ourselves, what are we building these roads for? Are we creating paths that foster connection, collaboration, and understanding? Or are we building roads that divide us, that isolate us from one another, and that limit our ability to communicate and grow? The lost roads of the past were often pathways of exchange, where cultures and ideas met, where trade flourished, and where relationships were forged. The roads we build today, too, should be spaces for connection, not just for physical movement, but for the exchange of ideas, cultures, and experiences. The lost roads challenge us to think beyond the immediate, to consider the long-term impact of our actions and decisions, and to ask ourselves what kind of legacy we want to leave behind. Will our roads be the highways of progress and unity, or will they be the walls of division and isolation? Will they foster collaboration, creativity, and shared growth, or will they perpetuate conflict, inequality, and disconnection? The lost roads compel us to look at the world with fresh eyes, to reconsider the paths we take and the connections we make. They urge us to slow down, to be mindful of the impact of our movements, and to recognize that every journey we undertake is part of a much larger, much older story, one that stretches back through time and continues to shape the world we live in today. As we move forward, we must also recognize the ways in which the lost roads continue to shape us, even in their absence. The roads of the past, though no longer visible, continue to influence the choices we make, the paths we take, and the connections we build. They are a reminder that the journey is not just about reaching a destination, but about the experiences we have along the way, the people we meet, and the stories we create. The lost roads also invite us to reflect on the nature of progress itself.
As we stand at the threshold of our present moment, we are reminded that the roads we walk, the connections we forge, and the paths we create will one day become part of the story of the future. The lost roads of the past, though physically erased or overgrown with time, continue to reverberate through the present, calling us to reflect on the legacy we are building. Every road, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, carries with it the potential to change lives, shape communities, and alter the course of history. These roads, whether they are physical highways or metaphorical pathways, are not just about the spaces they traverse, but about the people they bring together, the connections they facilitate, and the progress they enable. The lost roads were once symbols of hope, progress, and the human desire to reach beyond the immediate horizon. They represented the unyielding determination to overcome obstacles, to connect distant lands and cultures, and to create a world where ideas, goods, and people could flow freely. Yet even as these roads faded into obscurity, their influence remained, embedded in the stories of those who once traveled them, and in the cultures and societies that depended on them. These roads, though gone from the physical world, continue to live in the collective memory of humanity, a memory that transcends time and place, connecting us to the past and shaping our understanding of the present and future. The lost roads remind us of the impermanence of all things and the fragile nature of human creation. No matter how enduring or monumental the roads of today may seem, they too will one day fade away, replaced by new paths, new technologies, and new ways of connecting. But in this inevitable transformation, the spirit of the lost roads endures. Their absence challenges us to consider the purpose of the roads we build today, the impact they will have on future generations, and the legacy we leave behind. What kind of roads are we constructing for the future? Are we building paths that will foster connection, understanding, and collaboration, or are we creating barriers that will divide us, isolate us, and hinder progress? The lessons of the lost roads offer us valuable insights into the nature of connection and the importance of building pathways that serve not just the present, but the future.
The roads of the past were built with purpose, with the understanding that they would connect people, places, and cultures in ways that would shape history for generations. Today, we must ask ourselves if we are doing the same. Are we building roads that will enable the free exchange of ideas, the movement of people, and the sharing of knowledge? Are we creating paths that will bring us closer together, that will unite us in our shared humanity? Or are we building roads that reinforce division, that create barriers, and that limit our potential for growth and connection? The lost roads challenge us to think about the long-term impact of our decisions, to consider the ways in which our actions today will shape the world of tomorrow. The roads we build now will be the stories of the future, the paths that future generations will walk, and the connections they will make. Just as we inherit the roads of the past, so too will future generations inherit the roads we build today. And in this sense, the lost roads of history are not just reminders of what was, but of what could have been and what still can be. They are invitations to reconsider our relationship with the world, with the land, and with one another. They ask us to think deeply about the kind of legacy we want to leave behind, and the kind of world we want to create for future generations. The lost roads offer us a vision of what is possible when we build with purpose, when we move forward with intention, and when we recognize the power of connection to transform lives and societies. They remind us that no matter how many roads are lost, no matter how many paths fade into history, the spirit of those roads, the desire to connect, to move, and to create, is eternal. And as long as we continue to walk, to build, and to connect, the lost roads will continue to guide us, serving as both a reflection of the past and a beacon for the future. In this way, the roads we build today are not just for us, but for those who will follow in our footsteps, who will walk the paths we lay down, and who will carry forward the lessons of the lost roads into a new era of connection, collaboration, and progress. The journey is never truly over. It is always unfolding, always evolving, and always connecting us to something greater than ourselves. The lost roads are a testament to this ongoing journey, a reminder that the paths we walk today will one day be the roads of tomorrow, and that the connections we make now will continue to shape the future in ways we can only begin to imagine. So as we continue on our journey, let us remember the lost roads of the past, honor the connections they once enabled, and commit ourselves to building roads that will serve future generations, creating a legacy of connection, understanding, and progress that will transcend time and continue to guide the journey of humanity long after we have passed.
The lost roads, in their silence and absence, continue to speak to us in ways that modern roads, swift, efficient, and often impersonal, cannot. These ancient paths, once the lifeblood of civilizations, tell stories not only of the people who traveled them, but of the land they traversed, the communities they united, and the cultures they shaped. When we look at these lost roads, we are reminded of the profound connection between human beings and the places they inhabit. The roads of the past were more than just physical structures. They were reflections of human ambition, dreams, and the desire to reach beyond the known, to discover new lands, new opportunities, and new ways of understanding the world. They were not only ways to move from one point to another, but conduits for the exchange of ideas, goods, and knowledge. In their creation, maintenance, and use, they were places where civilizations met, traded, and grew together. And even as these roads fade into history, they continue to shape the way we see the world today. The lost roads serve as a metaphor for the impermanence of human efforts. Despite the grand designs, the enormous labor, and the technological innovations that went into building them,
The forces of nature, politics, and time eventually claimed them, as they will one day claim the roads we build today. This inevitability, this acceptance of change, is a powerful lesson. Nothing we build is immune to the passage of time, yet the impact of our creations can still endure long after they are gone. The lost roads remind us that the value of any journey lies not in the length of the path or the permanence of the infrastructure, but in the connections it creates and the experiences it enables. Even as the roads of the past vanish, they continue to leave an imprint on the world through the stories, relationships, and exchanges they facilitated. The lost roads encourage us to think deeply about how we create paths today, whether those paths are literal or metaphorical. In a world that moves increasingly quickly, where speed and efficiency often take precedence over reflection and connection, the lessons of the lost roads remind us that true progress is not simply about reaching destinations faster, but about fostering relationships, exchanging ideas, and creating opportunities for growth and understanding. In the rush to build our own modern roads, our digital networks, our transportation systems, our social structures, we must remember that the essence of a road is not in the movement it facilitates, but in the connections it enables. The lost roads of the past were not simply routes of transportation, they were networks of human interaction, and in this they offer us a profound insight into the nature of progress. Progress is not just about overcoming obstacles or advancing technology. It is about building connections, opening spaces for exchange, and fostering relationships that transcend distance, time, and difference. As we build the roads of the future, we must be mindful of the lessons of the past. We must ask ourselves whether the roads we create are truly fostering connection and understanding, or whether they are merely speeding us toward distant, often disconnected destinations. The lost roads teach us that movement in and of itself is not enough. It is the relationships we build along the way, the stories we share, and the opportunities we create for others that give movement its meaning. The roads we create today will be the paths future generations will walk, and just as we walk in the footsteps of those who came before us, so too will those who follow us walk the paths we lay down. It is therefore our responsibility to build roads that not only serve our immediate needs, but that also contribute to the broader tapestry of human connection, understanding, and progress. The lost roads remind us that even in their disappearance, they continue to serve as a model of the larger story of human existence. They show us that while physical paths may be erased, the connections they forged live on in the stories, relationships, and cultures they helped create. As we move forward, we must ensure that the paths we build today are not just functional, but meaningful, not just fast, but intentional, and not just temporary, but lasting. The lost roads encourage us to slow down, to reflect on the journey itself, and to consider how the roads we walk today will shape the future. In this, they offer us a call to action, to build roads that do more than simply connect point A to point B, but that also foster meaningful connections, exchanges, and opportunities for growth and understanding. In the rush to build our own modern roads, our digital networks, our transportation systems, our social structures, we must remember that the essence of a road is not in the movement it facilitates, but in the connections it enables. The lost roads of the past were not simply routes of transportation, they were networks of human interaction, and in this they offer us a profound insight into the nature of progress. Progress is not just about overcoming obstacles or advancing technology. It is about building connections, opening spaces for exchange, and fostering relationships that transcend distance, time, and difference. As we build the roads of the future, we must be mindful of the lessons of the past. We must ask ourselves whether the roads we create are truly fostering connection and understanding, or whether they are merely speeding us toward distant, often disconnected destinations. The lost roads teach us that movement in and of itself is not enough. It is the relationships we build along the way, the stories we share, and the opportunities we create for others that give movement its meaning. The roads we create today will be the paths future generations will walk, and just as we walk in the footsteps of those who came before us, so too will those who follow us walk the paths we lay down. It is therefore our responsibility to build roads that not only serve our immediate needs, but that also contribute to the broader tapestry of human connection, understanding, and progress. The lost roads remind us that even in their disappearance, they continue to serve as a model of the larger story of human existence. They show us that while physical paths may be erased, the connections they forged live on in the stories, relationships, and cultures they helped create. As we move forward, we must ensure that the paths we build today are not just functional, but meaningful, not just fast, but intentional, and not just temporary, but lasting. The lost roads encourage us to slow down, to reflect on the journey itself, and to consider how the roads we walk today will shape the future. In this, they offer us a call to action, to build roads that do more than simply connect point A to point B, but that also foster meaningful connections, exchanges, and opportunities for growth and understanding. In the rush to build our own modern roads, our digital networks, our transportation systems, our social structures, we must remember that the essence of a road is not in the movement it facilitates, but in the connections it enables. The lost roads of the past were not simply routes of transportation, they were networks of human interaction, and in this they offer us a profound insight into the nature of progress. Progress is not just about overcoming obstacles or advancing technology. It is about building connections, opening spaces for exchange, and fostering relationships that transcend distance, time, and difference. As we build the roads of the future, we must be mindful of the lessons of the past. We must ask ourselves whether the roads we create are truly fostering connection and understanding, or whether they are merely speeding us toward distant, often disconnected destinations. The lost roads teach us that movement in and of itself is not enough. It is the relationships we build along the way, the stories we share, and the opportunities we create for others that give movement its meaning. The roads we create today will be the paths future generations will walk, and just as we walk in the footsteps of those who came before us, so too will those who follow us walk the paths we lay down. It is therefore our responsibility to build roads that not only serve our immediate needs, but that also contribute to the broader tapestry of human connection, understanding, and progress. The lost roads remind us that even in their disappearance, they continue to serve as a model of the larger story of human existence. They show us that while physical paths may be erased, the connections they forged live on in the stories, relationships, and cultures they helped create. As we move forward, we must ensure that the paths we build today are not just functional, but meaningful, not just fast, but intentional, and not just temporary.
As we continue on our journey through time, the significance of the lost roads becomes ever clearer. They are not just forgotten relics, they are living symbols of the journey itself, of human resilience, curiosity, and connection. The lost roads are not only reminders of what has passed, but also of what remains, what continues to shape our present and our future. These roads, even in their physical disappearance, continue to influence the way we build, move, and connect today. They remind us that the value of a road is not in its permanence, but in the relationships it fosters, the connections it enables, and the experiences it offers. As we build the roads of today, whether they are physical, digital, or metaphorical, we must be mindful of the lessons of the lost roads, lessons that teach us about impermanence, resilience, and the importance of connection. The roads we create today are not isolated from the roads of the past. They are a continuation of a much larger narrative, one that stretches back through history and forward into the future. The lost roads challenge us to think about the long-term impact of our decisions, to consider how the paths we lay down today will affect future generations, and to ask ourselves what kind of legacy we want to leave behind. In the rush to build faster, more efficient roads, we must not forget that the true value of a road is not in how quickly we can travel it, but in the relationships it fosters, the connections it enables, and the experiences it offers. The lost roads were not just about reaching a destination, they were about the journey itself, about the people we meet, the cultures we exchange with, and the understanding we gain along the way. These roads remind us that human progress is not just about moving from one place to another, but about the connections we make, the stories we share, and the growth we experience in the process. The lost roads also invite us to slow down, to reflect, and to reconsider the way we approach movement and progress. In a world that often values speed and efficiency over connection and understanding, the lost roads remind us of the importance of taking the time to build meaningful relationships, to foster collaboration, and to engage in thoughtful exchange. The roads of the past were not built in haste, they were crafted with care, with an understanding of the land, the people, and the purpose they served. They were designed not just to transport goods and people, but to facilitate the exchange of ideas, culture, and knowledge. And as we build the roads of today, we must ask ourselves whether we are doing the same. Are we creating paths that foster collaboration, understanding, and shared growth, or are we simply building roads that serve immediate, narrow goals without considering the broader, long-term impact? The lost roads challenge us to think beyond ourselves, beyond the present moment, and to consider the future we are creating. They urge us to recognize that the roads we build today will one day be lost, but the connections they facilitate will continue to shape the world for generations to come. This awareness calls us to be more intentional in the paths we create, to ensure that the roads we build are not just for ourselves, but for the generations that will follow. As we walk the roads of today, we must remember the lost roads, not as symbols of loss, but as reminders of what is truly important: connection, collaboration, and the journey itself. The lost roads speak to us across time, urging us to build paths that will endure, paths that will create lasting connections, and paths that will serve the greater good. They remind us that the journey is never truly over. It continues, evolving, adapting, and moving forward just as we do. And as we continue to walk these paths, we carry with us the lessons of the lost roads, using them as a guide for the journey ahead. The lost roads offer us the opportunity to reflect on the deeper meaning of our movement through the world, to recognize that the value of a road is not in how quickly we can travel it, but in the relationships it fosters, the connections it makes, and the stories it helps us create. The lost roads challenge us to think more deeply about the roads we build today, to ensure that they are roads of connection, understanding, and shared growth, and to build a future where the roads we leave behind are paths that future generations will walk with purpose, meaning, and reflection. The lost roads, in their absence, continue to shape us, guiding us toward a future that values connection over speed, collaboration over competition, and understanding over isolation. They remind us that every road we walk, every path we create, is part of a much larger journey, one that stretches across time and space, one that connects us to the past, to each other, and to the future. And in this way, the lost roads, though physically absent, continue to guide us on our journey,
reminding us that the true value of any road is not in its length or its destination, but in the relationships it fosters, the connections it enables, and the experiences it offers.
As we continue on our journey through time, the significance of the lost roads becomes ever clearer. They are not just forgotten relics, they are living symbols of the journey itself, of human resilience, curiosity, and connection. The lost roads are not only reminders of what has passed, but also of what remains, what continues to shape our present and our future. These roads, even in their physical disappearance, continue to influence the way we build, move, and connect today. They remind us that the value of a road is not in its permanence, but in the relationships it fosters, the connections it enables, and the experiences it offers. As we build the roads of today, whether they are physical, digital, or metaphorical, we must be mindful of the lessons of the lost roads, lessons that teach us about impermanence, resilience, and the importance of connection. The roads we create today are not isolated from the roads of the past. They are a continuation of a much larger narrative, one that stretches back through history and forward into the future. The lost roads challenge us to think about the long-term impact of our decisions, to consider how the paths we lay down today will affect future generations, and to ask ourselves what kind of legacy we want to leave behind. In the rush to build faster, more efficient roads, we must not forget that the true value of a road lies not in how quickly we can travel it, but in the connections it fosters and the experiences it enables. The lost roads were not just about reaching a destination, they were about the journey itself, about the people we meet, the cultures we exchange with, and the understanding we gain along the way. These roads remind us that human progress is not just about moving from one place to another, but about the connections we make, the stories we share, and the growth we experience in the process. The lost roads also invite us to slow down, to reflect, and to reconsider the way we approach movement and progress. In a world that often values speed and efficiency over connection and understanding, the lost roads remind us of the importance of taking the time to build meaningful relationships, to foster collaboration, and to engage in thoughtful exchange. The roads of the past were not built in haste, they were crafted with care, with an understanding of the land, the people, and the purpose they served. They were designed not just to transport goods and people, but to facilitate the exchange of ideas, culture, and knowledge. And as we build the roads of today, we must ask ourselves whether we are doing the same. Are we creating paths that foster collaboration, understanding, and shared growth? Or are we simply building roads that serve immediate, narrow goals without considering the broader, long-term impact? The lost roads challenge us to think beyond ourselves, beyond the present moment, and to consider the future we are creating. They urge us to recognize that the roads we build today will one day be lost, but the connections they facilitate will continue to shape the world for generations to come. This awareness calls us to be more intentional in the paths we create, to ensure that the roads we build are not just for ourselves, but for the generations that will follow. As we walk the roads of today, we must remember the lost roads, not as symbols of loss, but as reminders of what is truly important: connection, collaboration, and the journey itself. The lost roads speak to us across time, urging us to build paths that will endure, paths that will create lasting connections, and paths that will serve the greater good. They remind us that the journey is never truly over. It continues, evolving, adapting, and moving forward just as we do. And as we continue to walk these paths, we carry with us the lessons of the lost roads, using them as a guide for the journey ahead. The lost roads offer us the opportunity to reflect on the deeper meaning of our movement through the world, to recognize that the value of a road is not in how quickly we can travel it, but in the relationships it fosters, the connections it enables, and the experiences it offers. The lost roads challenge us to think more deeply about the roads we build today, to ensure that they are roads of connection, understanding, and shared growth, and to build a future where the roads we leave behind are paths that future generations will walk with purpose, meaning, and reflection. The lost roads, in their absence, continue to shape us,
guiding us toward a future that values connection over speed, collaboration over competition, and understanding over isolation. They remind us that every road we walk, every path we create, is part of a much larger journey, one that stretches across time and space, one that connects us to the past, to each other, and to the future. And in this way, the lost roads, though physically absent, continue to guide us on our journey, reminding us that the true value of any road is not in its length or its destination, but in the connections it fosters, the experiences it enables, and the legacy it leaves behind.
As we reflect on the lost roads, their enduring presence in our collective memory serves as a reminder of the impermanence of all things, and yet, in their fading, they invite us to see a deeper, more profound truth. The connections that these roads once enabled continue to echo through time. Roads, after all, are not merely physical constructs. They are the channels through which human experiences, aspirations, and interactions flow. These lost roads were the vessels of human progress, the carriers of culture, trade, and knowledge. And even though they have been overrun by nature or forgotten by history, they remain embedded in the very fabric of our identities and civilizations. The lost roads challenge us to think beyond the physical structures themselves and to consider the deeper connections they facilitated, connections that transcend time, geography, and even memory. The exchange of goods, the sharing of ideas, the mingling of cultures, all of these were made possible by these roads, and their legacy continues to shape the world we live in today. The lost roads remind us that we are not merely individuals moving through space, but part of an ongoing, interconnected journey that spans generations, cultures, and continents. Just as these roads once connected distant lands and peoples, they still connect us to the past, to those who walked before us, and to the lessons they imparted. As we walk our own paths today, we must remember that we are not walking alone. We are following in the footsteps of those who came before us, and we are laying the foundations for those who will come after us. The roads we build today are not isolated from the past. They are extensions of the paths that were once traveled, connecting the present with the past and guiding us toward a future we have yet to imagine. These lost roads ask us to reconsider what it means to be connected, to move, and to grow. In our fast-paced modern world, we often prioritize speed, efficiency, and progress at the expense of connection and understanding. We race down roads that lead us to destinations, often without pausing to reflect on the journey itself or the relationships we form along the way. The lost roads, however, urge us to slow down, to take the time to engage with the land, with the people we meet, and with the experiences that shape us. They remind us that the true value of a road is not in how quickly it gets us from one place to another, but in the connections it enables, the lives it touches, and the memories it creates. In this way, the lost roads are not just relics of the past, they are guides for the present and the future, teaching us that the paths we take today will one day be the lost roads of tomorrow, and that the connections we make along the way will define the world for generations to come. As we continue to build roads and forge connections, we must ask ourselves, what kind of legacy do we want to leave behind? Are we building roads that foster collaboration, understanding, and shared growth? Or are we creating paths that divide us, that isolate us, and that limit our potential for growth and connection? The lost roads challenge us to think about the long-term impact of our decisions, to consider how the roads we lay down today will affect future generations, and to recognize that the connections we build are more important than the speed or efficiency with which we move. The lost roads, though gone from the physical world, continue to offer us valuable lessons, urging us to build not just for ourselves, but for the world we will leave behind. These roads remind us that the journey is not about the destination, but about the connections we make along the way,
the relationships we foster, and the impact we have on the world around us. They teach us that every step we take is part of a much larger story, one that stretches across time and space, linking us to the past, the present, and the future. And as we move forward, we must remember that the roads we build today will one day be the lost roads of tomorrow. The lost roads are not merely remnants of the past, they are the foundations of the future, guiding us toward a world that values connection, collaboration, and progress. As we continue to walk, to build, and to connect, let us carry the lessons of the lost roads with us, remembering that the true value of any road is not in its length or its speed, but in the connections it enables, the relationships it fosters, and the legacy it leaves behind. The lost roads continue to guide us, even in their absence, teaching us that the journey is never truly over, that it continues, always unfolding, always evolving, and always connecting us to something greater than ourselves. The lost roads of the past are not just symbols of what has been lost, but beacons for what is yet to come. And as we continue to walk, to build, and to connect, we carry with us the spirit of those roads, creating new paths for future generations, and ensuring that the connections we make today will continue to shape the world for generations to come.